Hey tankers, Taugrim here. In our second episode of The Art of Warfare, we look at the Sheridan. This is a Tier 4 light tank, and it has a dubious reputation. I've really grown to appreciate this tank, but it does have some very noticeable flaws that have to be managed carefully. The main ammo that you use is the heat round. It has very high alpha damage of 472 and good penetration of 316. The issue, since this is a shaped charge, is that it will pre-detonate if you hit spaced armor, tracks, or countermeasures such as ERA. On top of this, the gun has pretty poor handling. It has a slow targeting or aim time of 4.6 seconds, a very high accuracy spread of 0.27, so it's not very accurate, and a long reload of around 14 seconds. The tank also fires through the same gun guided missiles, and while these do have really high penetration, you lose a little bit on the alpha value and the reload time is significantly longer. On top of this, you have to be meaningfully exposed from the time the guided missile is flying to your target, like I talked about in the previous video with the swing fire, so I don't really like using guided missiles. And if you swap between the ammo types on this tank because they use the same gun, you trigger the full reload. Now there are plenty of tanks in this game that have a missile launcher as a second weapon, so you can do a weapon swap which only takes a few seconds, but you can't do that with this tank. The tank is pretty mobile. It doesn't have good top end speed, but it's reasonably agile. It's very similar in a lot of respects to the T-49 from World of Tanks in terms of the gun handling and being a little bit on the largest side, and the armor is paper thin. For commanders, I recommend using the commanders you unlock through playing either Tier 4 Arty, since they have bonuses for both your aim time and your reload time, and these are really important in offsetting the weaknesses of the heat round. A lot of you will be playing this tank eventually because it offers the upgrades to the hull reinforcement, which is the main hit point boost. So let's take a look at this tank in a Tier 5 pipelines match. I like to pop the speed boost cooldown immediately at the beginning of a match to help me get to a good position. Where I'm heading from the south spawn of pipelines is toward the rock at G5. It provides good hard cover, shielding you from the western half of the map and allows you to fire on targets there, and then it also has hard cover from tanks on the eastern side of the map. As I said earlier, I tend to favor using heat rounds over the guided missile. The guided missile can be really good if you're very far away from a target and you know it's going to be meaningfully exposed out in the open for a while, so there's time for the missile to travel in. But the issue with the heat round and with the guided missile is they have very low velocity. The heat round only moves 750 meters per second, and if you're firing at a target far away, you have to lead out the target or hope that they're stationary. We spot a Starfire coming over the hill. He's parked, so I take a quick shot, and then because I've been spotted, I immediately drop down behind hard cover. And you can see that missile indicator. That's a swing fire who was trying to fire at me. He's been spotted, and I try to hit him with a return heat round. I don't lead him out enough. You can see that round ended up passing or missing to the left of the swing fire, and at this kind of range, heat is pretty difficult to land on targets that are moving. For moving targets, using AP rounds is far more reliable, but this tank doesn't have access to them. We're losing, so I take a quick snapshot at this OF-40 and nail him for 500 damage. It definitely was a little bit lucky, but you know, I have an open shot in his rear, and that's generally a fairly easy penetration. One of our heavy tanks is down here fighting an enemy Sheridan, so this gives me time to go ahead and aim in. You can tell the Sheridan sees me, like his turret's turning toward me, but there's nothing he can do. He probably should have pulled back behind hard cover a little bit. We're still losing by 3 tanks, so this is a bit of a deficit to overcome. The main thing that I've had to learn with this tank is to time when I'm going to push in and flank on opposing tanks, because it really doesn't have any kind of meaningful armor, and it is pretty big in terms of the profile, so you can't really hide it. And here's a good example of where a guided missile might make more sense in using a heat round, because I could aim in against that target, and it looks like a friendly target, a friendly tank hits and finishes him off before my heat round can travel over and hit him. They have more tanks than we do, but 3 of them are over in the eastern side of the map along the 8-9 lanes, whereas all of our tanks are able to provide fire on the tanks on their western side of the map. So even though they have the numbers, we're in a good position to pull a comeback here. I just need to be careful that I don't end up hitting a friendly tank as I fire on this T-64. And this is a bit of a tough shot. The only chance I have really is penetrating the sides out of his turret armor from this distance. You know, if I hit him lower, it's probably going to hit him in the tracks. We've closed this to 1 tank gap. I'm going to slide up pretty high on the hill here to see if I have a shot on this tank destroyer, and it turns out he's too far down below the ridge. But what I can do is find out where the other two main battle tanks they have on their side. Alright, so I spot the M60A3. This is their tier 5 heavy tank, or main battle tank. I've actually been driving one and really enjoy that tank. It's really good. And then I spot their starship, and I try to take a shot. I should be leading him out a little more. You can see that shot hits the sand behind him, and I've been spotted. We are tied now, and the question is whether I'll be able to peek up after the spotting indicator has expired. So, okay, I've dropped from their sight, so I want to see if I can get a shot off, but they've already spotted me, so there's no way I'm going to risk going up on that ridge and letting them get the first shot opportunity. So what I'll do is I'm going to tell the other friendly Sheridan, let's rush the T-64. I pop my speed boost to help get around, because right now this main battle tank is isolated, so we can get a 2 versus 1 on him. He just fired his gun, so that's going to buy me a little bit of time to get close enough to aim in on the slow aiming gun. Now in this video I wasn't using one of the arty commanders to drive the tank, since unlocking Freyja actually makes a huge difference as far as the aim time reduction. So what you're seeing here is pretty much the base ugly full aim time, but it gets a lot better. I'm shooting on the side of the tank right below where the tracks start, but above the wheels, so that my shots can go through and penetrate. So the gun, the gun handling is poor, but it definitely is okay in close range brawling. And I go ahead and pop my smoke screen as a little bit of a help, hopefully to prevent the second tank from spotting us. Pretty soon he's going to see us, and thankfully we take out their T-64 before the starship can come over and provide support. So the starship comes up and over. You can see he's exposing the side of his turret, which is an easy penetration with heat since he doesn't have any countermeasures. And now we've got a pretty decisive 4-2 lead. I get hit by arty on the move, and it's kind of interesting. My thoughts on arty about this game, people have said a lot, and I agree with, it's better than the World of Tanks implementation. I popped my speed boost there to close the distance to arty, since I know he must be in the northeast corner of the map. But I think, comparing this arty in Armored Warfare to World of Tanks is really the wrong benchmark. There is an artillery warning indicator when incoming fire is heading your way, but the problem is you don't know if the arty's aiming right at you, leading in front of you, shooting behind you, to the side. You don't know. So I've been tagged by arty a couple times even moving at full speed, but that's because I don't know where. I know he's shooting towards me, but I don't know where at me he's shooting. At any rate, I spot the arty, hit him with a high damaging round. He's now very low HP. Once he comes back out of that hard cover, even though I'm spotted, he's driving. His aiming reticle is going to be huge. I'm not so concerned about his ability to hit me. And now we're up 3 tanks to 1. So this tank, is a really good mobile flanker. You have to be careful about, getting into brawling lanes with main battle tanks, which are going to be able to penetrate you pretty much anywhere. And what you definitely don't want to do is what I do here. I come out into the open, expose myself, thinking I'll be able to get a shot off without him hitting me, and he kills me. And if we had lost this match, this would have been my fault. But thankfully, our last 2 remaining tanks do the right thing, work the flanks, support each other, and we end up winning the battle. So I deal almost 3,700 damage. It would have been over 4K easily if I had been more careful against that last enemy tank. But this shows, this tank is pretty effective at dealing damage. You've just got to be very careful about conserving your hit points. In the next video, we're going to take a look at another tank which has received a lot of criticism from the players, called the Starship. It's a tank I've actually really enjoyed playing and averaged about 1,900 damage per game, so my review of that tank is coming up next. Hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know your thoughts on the Sheridan and Armored Warfare. Take care.